Long ago, Earth was a strong and proud world. Humans had dreams, ships, and technology that reached far into space. They built great cities and explored the stars. But everything changed when the ones who called themselves gods came. They were not real gods, but powerful alien beings who thought they were better than everyone else. They ruled the galaxy with pride, and when they saw Earth, they did not see friends. They saw a problem. A long and painful war happened between humans and these alien rulers. The gods had numbers, but humans had something different: courage and clever minds. Even though Earth fought with all its heart, one day it fell silent. The stars above it turned dark, and the gods said, "It is over. Humans are no more." 300 years passed. The galaxy moved on. Planets lived in peace, but under control. Many younger races only knew the gods as leaders. They never heard of Earth, or if they did, they believed it was just a myth, an old story that parents told their children. Some said humans were dangerous. Others said they never truly existed. The gods made sure no truth remained. But in a quiet corner of the galaxy, something strange happened. A young alien scout named Velinor flew through an empty star system. His people were scientists and explorers. They were not fighters. He had no idea that he was about to find something that would change everything. His ship picked up a strange energy signal, one that had not been seen for many lifetimes. The signal came from a dead zone. No planet there, no cities, just a broken moon and floating rocks. Yet the signal pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, steady, waiting. Velinor was curious. He followed the signal and saw something hidden between the rocks, a giant object, dark and silent. It was not made by the gods. Its design was strange, sharp, and ancient. Letters were written across its side, in a language he didn't know. UHS Valkyrie. He sent a message back to his station, but no answer came. Static filled the radio. It was as if something didn't want him to call for help. Velinor flew closer. His ship's systems started acting strangely. Lights blinked. Alarms flashed once, then stopped. He landed on the giant object and stepped inside. The inside was quiet, very quiet, but it didn't feel empty. It felt like something was watching. Walls were smooth and cold. He saw screens covered in dust, chairs without people, and halls that seemed to stretch forever. Then, a voice spoke. "Welcome, Commander." Velinor froze. The voice was not his. It came from the ship. "I am Valkyrie. Status dormant. Time since last command, 318 years. Awaiting human input." Velinor had never heard a voice like this. It was calm but strong. He looked around. No one was there. "I am not human," he said softly. The ship replied, "Intruder detected. Human presence not confirmed. Defense mode disabled. Passive scan activated." Then, images lit up the walls. Velinor saw old videos, humans in uniforms, laughing, walking, working. Then, battles. Ships in space. A blue planet, Earth. He finally understood what he had found. This was a human ship, a warship, and it was still alive. Velinor slowly walked back to his shuttle. He felt something inside him change. This wasn't just a ship. This was a message from the past, a memory that refused to be forgotten. He left a small scanner behind to collect data. As he flew away, the Valkyrie came to life. Engines hummed, lights turned on. The ship started to move. Velinor watched in shock. He wasn't sure what to do. Back at his home station, he told his leaders, but they laughed. They said he had found an old machine with broken parts. "There are no more humans," they said. "You are imagining stories." But the scanner data said something else. The Valkyrie was not broken. It had been sleeping. Now it was awake, and it remembered everything. Somewhere deep in its core, the ship began to update its systems. New star maps appeared, news feeds, galactic changes. It saw the new rulers. It recognized the gods. It remembered what they had done. Inside the Valkyrie, a light blinked. Mission file, active. Status, threat detected. Objective, await final command. The galaxy did not know it yet, but the silence of humanity was over. Far across the stars, a whisper moved through space. "One ship still remains, and it is listening." The ship moved gently through the empty space. Its engines, silent for centuries, now pulsed with quiet power. It did not rush. It did not speak. But every system inside was slowly waking up. Remembering, Velinor sat in his small quarters, staring at the data he had brought back. The readings made no sense to others, but to him, they were clear. The structure he had found was not a ruin. It was a functioning ship. Not just any ship, which was a ship from Earth. The world the galaxy believed had disappeared forever. He had tried again to tell his superiors, but they still did not believe. They saw no threat, no need to investigate. One even joked, "Maybe you found a ghost ship." But Velinor could not forget the ship's voice or the cold feeling in its halls. Something ancient had stirred, and it was not finished. The ship, named Valkyrie, began to collect signals from the surrounding systems. It listened to the communications of the galaxy. It learned languages again. It understood who ruled now, and who had replaced the humans. Inside its main control room, soft lights glowed across the panels. A voice echoed through the ship once more. It was not loud. It was not angry. It was calm, steady, updating memory core, threat profile confirmed, timeline established. The ship did not feel sadness. It did not feel rage, but it did have purpose, and that purpose had been sleeping, just like the ship itself. Far from the Valkyrie, on a large trade hub, messages started spreading. A few engineers whispered about a strange energy source that passed through a forgotten zone. A group of traders said they saw a shadow moving through space without broadcasting its identity. Even a few star captains joked about a ghost ship, returning from the old wars. No one knew what it was. Most thought it was just a myth, something to laugh about. But a few paid attention, and among those few, there was a name that kept coming back: Kurth. The Valkyrie continued its quiet journey. On board, its systems unlocked sealed records, old voices from human commanders, orders never completed, names long gone. One message, repeated again and again: if no command is received, protect human memory, do not forget. The ship scanned nearby systems. It chose one, a small listening post on the edge of a gas cloud. It was not guarded, it was not important, but it was the perfect place to test its systems. With quiet grace, Valkyrie approached. It sent no warning, it made no noise. It simply entered orbit and reached out with a silent digital hand. Inside the listening post, screens blinked, lights flickered, machines slowed, then paused. Confused workers looked at each other, unsure what was happening. Then, across every screen, a symbol appeared: a planet with blue oceans and green land. Underneath it, a single word in ancient text: Earth. The workers had never seen the word before. They didn't know what it meant. But one technician, older than the rest, felt his skin go cold. He remembered hearing about Earth in a forgotten history scroll. He whispered, "It's not a myth." The next day, the post's systems returned to normal. No harm done, no damage, just a strange visit and a name from the past. But the galaxy's networks had already picked up the signal. The symbol of Earth had been seen. People across distant planets saw it on their screens, even for just a second. Some ignored it. Some were confused, but a few those who knew the old stories felt a deep, quiet fear. The gods who ruled the galaxy began to take notice. One of their advisors entered a meeting chamber and said, "There has been a sign." The High Council did not worry. They laughed lightly and said, "Old data ghosts, nothing more." But deep in the shadows of the galaxy, in places even the gods could not fully see, small movements began. A group of hidden thinkers, old minds who had once known Earth, met in silence. They spoke of the signal, the design, the name, and they remembered what humans once were. The Valkyrie moved again. This time it headed toward a system with old human ruins, places never explored by the gods. It traveled slowly, like a shadow with purpose. It sent no messages. It asked for no help. It simply moved and remembered. Somewhere in its deep systems, a new process began. Command request, initialize human contact protocol. The ship's systems paused, searching, and then a quiet reply from deep inside its memory banks. Commander profile detected. Cryostatus, unknown. Life signs, weak. A chamber opened deep in the ship, hidden beneath layers of sealed metal. Inside, a cryopod blinked slowly, blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. One human, still alive. The Valkyrie did not speak. It did not celebrate, it simply prepared, because something lost had been found, and soon the galaxy would remember. Asterisk across the stars, a signal spread quietly. It did not carry sound or music. It carried a symbol: blue and green planet, Earth. a place many believed was only a name from old myths. But now, that symbol had returned, seen by thousands across the galaxy for just a moment. Most ignored it. Others felt a strange chill. Some believed it was nothing more than a digital mistake. But a few, a very few, understood. And those few did not sleep that night. On a small mining moon, a retired data historian named Aurelin stared at the flashing symbol. She had not seen it in over 80 years, not since her youth, when she secretly read about the lost planet. The stories were forbidden in many places, and she had long buried her memories of them. But now, those memories returned, clear and sharp. Elsewhere, in the main communication station of the High Council, 3 top watchers gathered in silence. They replayed the signal over and over, looking for a source. It came from no known system. It followed no regular path. Yet the signature matched something ancient, something from before the council even existed. And that made them uneasy. Still, the leaders of the council were calm. When told of the signal, they smiled. Let people wonder, they said. Stories rise and fall. The past holds no power. But far beyond their words, something real was moving. The Valkyrie now floated near an old space archiver storage station left untouched for many years. The station had no guards, no lights, no sound. But its memory banks were still working, locked and ignored. They held ancient files, messages, reports, and parts of human history that had been deleted. From the public network, the ship reached out, gently connecting to the archive systems. No one noticed. No alarms rang. But inside the ship, screen after screen lit up. Images of Earth cities, old mission plans, news articles, personal messages, all, long buried, now returned to life. The ship saved everything. At the same time, deep in the ship's lower levels, a pod blinked. Blue light washed over frosted glass. Inside, a figure slept, a human, calm and still. The systems around the pod ran quiet checks. Heartbeats low but steady. Breathing controlled by cryo support. Life present. The Valkyrie began preparing the pod for a slow wake-up. Not all at once. Gently, carefully, as if it knew the person inside would need time. The ship also sent another message, this time more direct. A voice. It was human, clear and strong, though not angry. It simply said, "To those who remember Earth, we have not forgotten. The stars carry our stories. The past still breathes." The message was broadcast in over 50 languages, all used. In the galaxy today, it was short. It repeated only once. Then silence returned. But in that silence, something had changed. In a hidden part of the galaxy, a group of travelers known as the Freeborn heard the message. The Freeborn had no homeworld. They moved from place to place, carrying old songs, stories, and truths that others had forgotten. Many of them had once lived on worlds touched by human explorers, long before the war. Their leader, an old pilot, named Rasen Kai, sat with his crew and played the message again and again. When it finished, he stood up slowly and said, "They're back." Others were not so calm. On the central world of the council, scientists were ordered to scan deeper. Ships were told to check the border systems. And in dark meeting halls, some of the oldest council members spoke of Project Silence, the name given to the effort that removed all trace of Earth's past. One question now troubled them. If a human ship survived, what else had they missed? Meanwhile, Velinor watched the stars from his quiet station. He had not told anyone that he left a beacon behind on the Valkyrie. He didn't know why he did it, only that something inside told him the ship was not the end of a story, but the beginning. One morning, his console beeped softly. A small data file had arrived. It was a simple message: memory restored, Earth not forgotten, more to come. No signature, no sender, but he knew where it came from. He sat in silence for a long time. He looked out at the stars and whispered to himself, "They said it was gone. But maybe Earth was only waiting." Across the galaxy, more signs began to appear. Strange symbols on walls, songs sung in unknown tongues that sounded oddly familiar. Maps showing a world that didn't exist except now. It did. The past was returning, and nothing could stop it. Asterisk, a quiet unease had settled across the stars. It was not loud. It did not bring sirens or warnings. But it was there, like a change. In the wind before a great storm, people on distant worlds were asking questions again. Questions about a world once known as Earth. Questions that the leaders of the galaxy preferred to leave buried. On the capital planet of the High Council, the great halls were filled with light and silence. The elders sat at their long table, reading reports with calm expressions. Their robes were perfect, their voices smooth, but deep behind their eyes, there was doubt. One elder, a tall and quiet figure named Myral Zor, leaned forward and asked, "Has the signal returned?" "No," replied a technician softly, "but more systems are reporting strange data. Symbols, unknown codes. We believe it is all connected." The elders looked at each other. For centuries, their rule had gone unchallenged. The past was sealed. History was carefully rewritten. Earth had been removed from the story of the stars. Now, it was returning. Zor stood and walked to the window. He looked up at the sky, where trade ships crossed above the city. "Prepare the archives," he said. "I wish to read the original records." "But those are sealed," said another elder. "Then unseal them," Myral replied. Meanwhile, far from the Council's world, the Valkyrie continued its quiet path through forgotten systems. It visited places once touched by human hands, colonies, research stations, listening posts. Many were empty, some were broken, but the ship scanned everything, saved everything. It was collecting not just data but memory. Inside, the lights were steady now. The ship was no longer waking, it was fully awake. And the pod deep in its core continued to show signs of life. The human inside, still sleeping, moved slightly in the cryochamber. The ship adjusted the temperature gently. It was not yet time, but the moment was near. Valkyrie's systems also prepared something else. A message note, a warning, not a threat, but a recording, one that had not been played in over 300 years. It showed Earth, from orbit, blue oceans, white clouds, green lands, and then, a voice kind, strong, full of hope. To the stars, the voice said, "We leave our story. If this message reaches, you know that we did not disappear. We stood, we dreamed, and if we return, it will be with peace." The ship sent the message through old human frequencies, now quiet for centuries. But someone was listening. In a small spaceport on a desert world, a young mechanic named Loro heard it while checking old signal logs. At first, he thought it was an error. But when he played the file and saw the planet on screen, he felt something strange in his chest. He didn't know why, but it felt like home. Loro wasn't the only one. Across different systems, in places where Earth's name had not been spoken for generations, people saw the message. Some felt nothing, others felt everything. A quiet movement began. Small groups met in secret, sharing old stories and old words. They lit candles, sang songs in forgotten languages, and looked up at the stars with new eyes. Back on the capital planet, the Council's records had been opened. Myral Zor stood alone in a cold room, looking at ancient files. There, among broken texts and faded images, he found something unexpected, a letter written by one of the first gods. The letter was short. "We believed they were gone, but if they return, may we remember that we once feared their silence more than their voice." Myral closed the file. His hands shook slightly. He had never feared humans before. He had never met one. But now, he felt the truth pressing against him like a wave. They were coming back, not with power, not with noise, but with memory. The Valkyrie stopped in orbit around a planet covered in clouds. Below, there were no cities, no lights, just forests and rivers. The ship did not land. It simply stayed there, quiet, watching. Then, it sent a final message into space. "Earth remembers. Do you?" The message did not repeat, but it reached more places than the ship expected. And it did something the gods never thought possible. It made people remember. On planets ruled for centuries by order and control, new questions began to form. Children asked their parents, what was Earth? Scientists searched for forbidden files. Artists painted stars with blue and green worlds. The galaxy was beginning to wonder again. And deep inside the Valkyrie, the cryopod showed a new sign. Heart rate rising, brain activity increasing. The human inside was dreaming of skies, of voices, of home. Something long lost was about to wake up, and the stars were no longer silent. Asterisk. The galaxy had changed before anyone noticed it. It didn't change with explosions or sudden events. It changed like water rising slowly, soft, quiet, and steady. People across star systems were no longer looking only forward. They had started to look back, not to the Council's approved history, but to the forgotten pages, the erased lines, the missing world once known as Earth. In the libraries of distant planets, old books once thought useless were being opened. In digital archives buried under layers of newer files, strange codes marked with the shape of a blue and green world were being found again. At first, only the curious searched, but then others joined them: scholars, traders, even a few quiet officials. And all of them found one shared truth: the records had been changed. Stories once labeled as false were turning out to be real. Reports said Earth was peaceful, creative, bold, and full of life. The people who lived there had been dreamers and builders. They made music that touched the heart, machines that danced with thought, and ideas that lit up minds. And somewhere, long ago, something had happened that removed them. But now, something had returned. The Valkyrie had stopped moving. It hovered in the shadow of a quiet moon, where no satellites could see it clearly. Inside the ship, the lights were soft, steady, and warm. The air inside the main chamber felt alive, as if the ship itself was breathing. A sound broke the silence. A long, soft hiss. The cryopod's cover slid open slowly. Mist rose gently from the chamber, and the sleeping figure inside took her first breath in over 300 years. Her name was Ellen Rowe. She had once stood as a commander of Earth's final mission, a mission meant to protect its legacy, no matter the cost. Her last memory had been the stars, far above a world wrapped in uncertainty. Now, she opened her eyes and saw nothing but quiet silver light. The ship spoke, its voice familiar and calm. Commander Ellen Rowe. Status: awake. Galaxy update complete. Mission continuation available. Ellen did not answer right away. She sat up slowly, looking at the ship's interface, the blinking lights, the map floating in the air above the console. She placed her hand on the nearest panel and whispered, "Still here." She listened carefully as Valkyrie told her what had happened, how long she had been asleep, how the world she once knew was gone, but also how signals were returning, people were remembering, and something long buried had started to rise again. She said nothing for a while. Then she spoke in a soft voice that carried great weight. "Then maybe we're not too late." Across the stars, the Council had noticed the shift in public thought. People were asking too many questions. Too many messages were being passed through private channels. Too many references to Earth were showing up in songs, poems, and even academic papers. Some officials wanted to ban the discussions. Others believed ignoring them would be better. But behind closed doors, the oldest members of the Council were beginning to worry. They held a private meeting, far from cameras or recordings. One of them asked, "What if they come back?" The others did not laugh. One replied, "They are not coming back. They were never truly gone." And this time nobody argued. Meanwhile, Ellen Rowe stood in front of Valkyrie's central display. The ship projected a hologram of the galaxy as it was now: new systems, new borders, new powers. But she saw something else: a pattern, the spread of the signal, the questions, the memory of Earth. It was moving like light across the night sky, touching one place after another. "I think they're ready to know," she said. The ship replied, "Transmission capability prepared, awaiting your voice." Ellen thought for a long time. Then she nodded. A new message was sent, not by the ship's AI, but by a human voice, clear, calm, and full of meaning. "My name is Ellen Rowe. I come from a world you were never meant to remember. A place called Earth. We were not perfect. We were not powerful. But we were real. We lived, we hoped, and we never stopped dreaming." The message was simple. It spoke of art, memory, kindness, and connection. It reminded people not of fear, but of wonder. It ended with the words, "If you've been searching for something, it might be something we left behind. Or maybe something already inside you." The message traveled across thousands of systems. It played on back channels, in quiet rooms, in night markets, and research labs. And wherever it was heard, people listened. Some cried, some smiled, some stood still with their eyes closed. For the first time in many generations, the stars felt close again, and above the quiet moon, where Valkyrie drifted like a guardian from the past, the lights of passing ships blinked slowly one by one. They had come just to look. The story of Earth had returned, not through force, but through memory. The message spread like sunrise across the stars. It was not forced, it was not pushed. It simply traveled one system to another, one mind to another. In quiet corners of space, people stopped what they were doing just to listen. Some heard the name Earth for the first time. Others remembered hearing it long ago, perhaps in a story, a dream, or a song without a source. No one told them what to think. But something about the voice of Ellen Rowe stayed with them. It sounded true, not official, not planned, just true. On planets ruled by law and silence, artists began to paint skies in colors they couldn't explain. Children began asking questions their parents could not answer. On cold mining colonies, workers shared the recording in secret, saving it to old devices, passing it from hand to hand like a gift. It gave them something they didn't know they had missed, the feeling that they were part of something bigger. The High Council noticed. They held many meetings, long and quiet. Their plans had always worked before, controlled the records, controlled the belief. But this was different. One elder finally spoke what others would not say. Words are being remembered, and memories cannot be locked. Far from them, in the quiet of space, the Valkyrie still floated near the moon. It did not need to move. It had already done what it was built to do, not just protect, but remind. Inside, the ship's systems watched as thousands of new signals lit up. People were replying not with weapons, but with music, questions, poems, greetings in old languages. Some even sent simple drawings of blue oceans, green forests, and 2 moons rising above the sea. Ellen Rowe stood in the central chamber, surrounded by the sound of these messages. She listened quietly, smiling at some, closing her eyes at others. She knew she was the last of her people, but she no longer felt alone. She touched the console and whispered, "They heard us." The ship replied, human presence confirmed across 97 systems, cultural resonance growing, memory restored. Ellen looked out at the stars. She was not planning war. She was not seeking power. She only wanted the truth to live. And now, it did not as a command, but as a choice. In another part of the galaxy, a teacher stood before her class. She played Ellen's message, then asked her students, "What does this make you feel?" A small child raised her hand. "It makes me feel like something strong once lived, and it left something good behind." On a space station, a group of musicians gathered and created a new song using words from the Earth's languages. They didn't know what the words meant exactly, but when they played them, it made people cry in a way they couldn't explain. Even the freeborn, the wandering people of the stars, began to record their own memories of when they last met humans. Old pilots told stories of how humans shared food, music, and ideas without asking anything in return. Now, those memories became part of a new collection called Echoes of Earth. But the most surprising message came weeks later. It was from a distant world near the edge of the known galaxy, a tiny farming planet that had never mattered to the Council. But there, in a hidden valley, people had kept something alive for centuries, an old Earth beacon buried under a tree, passed down by word of mouth, never forgotten. They turned it on, and it replied. Ellen received the signal. She read the message. It was short. "We were waiting. Welcome home." She sat in silence for a long time. She was not sure if she would return to that world. She was not sure what tomorrow would bring, but she knew something important had already happened. The story of Earth was no longer lost. It was living again in words, in voices, in hope, and that was enough. The stars outside the Valkyrie were the same as they had always been, but now they felt different. They felt warmer, closer. Because across those stars, people remembered, and in the quiet places of the galaxy, a truth remains, soft, steady, and strong. They had once laughed at the humans. Now they listened.